the foreigners, the wealthy people, and the elites, and as you said, even my observations of India, you also have the issue of the caste hierarchy that makes conservation look like it's like a upper class pursuit, and always making the lower class people feel that they should not be there. Now, and if we look at the situation today, I think the biggest problem, the biggest challenge we have, I've said in many talks, that the most powerful land grabbing tool in Africa is the rhino. And everywhere in Kenya, we are seeing rhino translocation. They're taking rhinos from national parks and making new sanctuaries for rhinos. And every time you take rhino, because they say, you know, all the reports that rhino is endangered and there's a lot of poaching and people are killing rhinos for the horns. So when you take rhino to a new place, first thing, you can push out the local people. Second thing, you can fence that land, put a fence around it. The third thing, you can get guns and weapons and use these weapons to shoot the local people to get them away. And those of us who study conservation, we can see there's a lot of extrajudicial killings in areas where we have rhino habitats. In Kenya, it's a big problem around Nakuru National Park, around Olpejeta Conservancy near where I live, Solio Wildlife Conservancy. These are all rhino habitats, and there's a lot of extrajudicial killings. And we see also the data from Kaziranga, and with the oppression of local people because of the rhinos. So this kind of practice has turned wildlife to become something like it's like a curse to local people. In fact, if you feel sorry, if there is rhinos near your home, you have no peace. You are always at war and fighting over those kind of things. And there's also imperialism around it, because some years ago, I noticed that when the Prince of Wales, Prince William, when he visited India, one of the places he went is Kaziranga. And you wonder, as a prince, India is a huge country, many places to visit. He had many state engagements, but you see that these imperial royal families, they will always go and visit the wildlife areas, because that's the area where they can express their power and imperialism. So even in Kenya, Prince William is always supporting conservation. He's always talking about conservation and population. We need to reduce population growth. We need to make new space for wildlife. So Prince William does not talk to Kenya about anything except only conservation. And we need to turn conservation into something that belongs to us, and not to people in other countries, not to the elites, but belongs to the local people who keep those things together. And I think also one thing in a global politics of wildlife, you will see that there's a lot of science and advice, policy advice for wildlife coming to Kenya from Europe and the United States, mostly from the global north. So Europeans are always telling us how to take care of our wildlife, and they do not have any wildlife there. They have very little wildlife, and they're certainly not the same species. But if you look at compare Kenya maybe with India, we have a lot of similar species. We have rhinos, elephants, lions, leopards, all sorts of monkeys, and this kind of thing. So we need to have a lot more collaboration, east-west collaboration between Africa and India in conservation, and other Asian countries also in conservation, instead of collaboration with countries in Europe and in the Americas that do not have the same wildlife and do not have the same issues that we have. So I'm hoping that when we do more and more webinars like this, we can talk some more and share lessons in how to live with wildlife, how to protect the rights of people who live close to wildlife, and let people let the owners of the forests stay in the forests. Because I came When I visited India a few years ago, there was this Dr. Yavendra Dev Jala of Wildlife Institute of India, and he was talking about taking the Adivasi people out of the forests. And he said that we are doing this because we want to civilize them. And this was a very unfortunate statement, because I think the most civilized people are the ones who can live with tigers and elephants and rhinos and other wildlife around them. That is civilization. Civilization is not killing wildlife or removing people from forests. And also, I've noticed that in Kenya, when we remove local people from forests, the next thing that comes is the logging companies or mining companies or carbon credits companies. And all these do not have anything to do to help conservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ogwara, for this wonderful, an insight into for this enlightening and enriching address. And we are, I mean, we are seeing a lot of it. What you're talking about, we are seeing quite a bit of this in Kaziranga as well as various other protected areas. Without, I mean, I want to actually bring us to the struggle that is waged by the Jenu Karuba community in Karnataka, who have been fighting for their rights of their forests. We are honored to have J.K. Thimma, who is also called Thimmanna, who hails from Gadehati village in Nagarhole in Karnataka. J.K. Thimma is a prominent shaman and leader of the Jenu Kuruba tribe, fiercely advocating for the right to live in their ancestral lands within India's Nagarhole National Park, also called Rajiv Gandhi National Park, against the forced eviction by authorities for conservation. He highlights the injustices of the forest conservation, arguing that his people who have lived in harmony with the forest for generations are better conservationists than the policies that displace them for tourism, often facing harassment, false charges, and destruction of their homes by the park officials. Under his guidance, Jenu Kuruba community displaced by the forest department reclaimed their habitat last year, and this year the community organized a foot march in December at Nagarhole on the important questions on rights of forest dwelling communities. With him, we also have Irumai Rajan, who is a part of CNAPA. Rajan has agreed to translate Thimmana's address in English. Thank you, Rajan, for agreeing to translate Thimmana's views. We request Thimmana to keep his address to about 5 minutes, which will be useful for translation. It will be great if Thimmana could also shed some light on the struggle in its present form and the larger message it carries for the people living around protected areas of the world. Over to you, Thimmana.
ಸುಮನ ಆ,
ಹಾ
ಒಂದು 5-6 ನಿಮಿಷ ಇದೆ.
ಹ್ಮ್
5-6 ನಿಮಿಷ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಂಗ ಹೋರಾಟ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಿಂಗ ಯಾನ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ
ಹಾ
ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಇದು
ಹಾ
ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ. ಆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ
ಹಾ
ಒಂದು 2 ಮಾತು.
ಹಾ ಹಾ. ಆ, ನನ್ನ ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಆ, ತಿಮ್ಮ ಜೆ.ಕೆ. ನಾಗರಹೊಳೆ ಆದಿವಾಸಿ ಜಮ್ಮಪಾಳೆ ಹಕ್ಕುಸ್ಥಾಪನಾ ಸಮಿತಿಯ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷ. ಆ, ಮತ್ತೆ CNPA ಒಬ್ಬ ಹಿರಿಕ ಮುಖ ಆ ಒಂದು ವೇದಿಕೆಗೂ. ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಈಗ ನಾಗರಹೊಳೆ ಆ, ಜಾತದ ವಿಚಾರ ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅದು ಆಳದೆ ಹೊರಟಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ನಾಗರಹೊಳೆ ಅರಣ್ಯ ಪ್ರದೇಶ ಒಳಗೆ ಆ, ನಂಗ ನಂಗ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕವಾಗಿ ಯಾನಾನ ಅದಿಗೆ ನಂಗ ದೇವರು ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ವಿಚಾರ ಮೇಲೆ, ಅಜ್ಜಯ್ಯದಿರು ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ವಿಚಾರ ಮೇಲೆ, ನಂಗ ಮನೆತನಗಳ ಒಂದು ಏರಿಯಾ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಲಿ ಅದಿಗೆ, ಯಾವ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಂಗೆ ನಡ್ಸ್ಕೊತಿಗೆ, ಯಾವ ಅದು ನಂಗೆ ಒಂದು 4 ಸಮುದಾಯ ಜೇನು ಕುರುಬ, ಬೆಟ್ಟ ಕುರುಬ, ಎರವ, ಪಂಜೀರಿ ಎರವ ಸಮುದಾಯಗ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೇ ನೇರ ನಂಗೆ ಅದನ್ನೇ ಜಾತಲ್ಲಿ ಅಳವಡಿಸೋಡಿನು. ಆ ಜಾತ ಆಯ್ರಸೋಡಿಂದ ಸುರಾದದು, ಎರವ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಒಂದು ಹಾಡಿಂದ ಸುರಾದದು. ಹಾಗೆ ನಿಟ್ಟೂರು ಗ್ರಾಮ ಪಂಚಾಯತಿ ತಿತಿಮತಿ ಫಸ್ಟು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಿಟ್ಟೂರು ಪಂಚಾಯತಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಏರಿಯಾಗಳು ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಎಚ್ಚರಿಕೊಟ್ಟೆ ಭಾಗ ನಂಗೆ ಸೇರಿ ಸಂದರ್ಭಲು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಂಗ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿಷಯನೇ ಆಳಿದದ್ದೇನೆಂದರೆ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಗಡಿ ಪ್ರದೇಶ ಒಳಗೆ ನಂಗದೇ ಆದ ಒಂದು ಜಮ್ಮಗು ಹಲವಾರು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆಗೆ ನಂಗೆ ಹಿಂಸೆ ಕೊಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿ ಆಳೋದಾದರೆ ಮೊದಲ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ ಆಳೋದಾದರೆ ಭಾಗ ಮಾಡಿರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಆಸ್ತಿಗಳ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಗಡಿ ಪ್ರದೇಶ ಭಾಗ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ನಾಲಿಕೇರಿ ಕಾಜಿಟ್ಟ ಅರಣ್ಯ, ಹತ್ಗಟ್ಟು ಮನದಂಗಲ ಅರಣ್ಯ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅರಿಕೆರೆ ಅರಣ್ಯ, ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್, ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದು ಭಾಗ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಇದು ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಆಧಾರಿತವಾಗಿರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಜಮ್ಮದ ಮೇಲೆ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಬೀರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅನಂತರ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿರ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೇ ಗುರುತಿಸುವವರಿಗೆ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ, ಅನಂತರ ಟೈಗರ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿವರಿಗೆ ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಜಮ್ಮದ ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಈ ತರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದರಿಂದ ಅದರ ನಂತರ ಈಗ ಸಫಾರಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಅದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ಒಡೆತ ಬುದ್ಧ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದಿಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಜಮ್ಮಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂತ ಸಫಾರಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಟೈಗರ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್, ಈ ತರ ನಾಲಿಕೇರಿ ಕಾಜಿಟ್ಟ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂತದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮ ಜಮ್ಮಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹೊಡೆತ ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. ಆದ್ರಿಂದ ಯಾವತ್ತದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆಯ ವಿಧಾನ ಹೌದು ಅಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೇರ ಆಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಅವರು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಈ ತರ ಮಾಡಿರೋದನ್ನ ಮಾತನಾಡ್ತವರಿಗೆ ಅದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ವಿಧಾನ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಅವರು ಎಂಜಾಯ್ಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಮಜಾ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಮಾಡಿದಂತ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೇ ನೇರ ಆಳಲಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಅದನ್ನೇ ಆಳ್ತವೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಥಳಾಂತರನ್ನೇ ಕೂಡ ಆಳ್ತವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾಗರಹೊಳೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಯಾನದಿಗೆ ನಾಗರಹೊಳೆ ಒಳಗಿರುವಂತ ಬುಡಕಟ್ಟು ಸಮುದಾಯ, ಆದಿವಾಸಿ ಸಮುದಾಯ ಯಾರ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ನೀರಿಂದ ಹೊರಗೆ ಹೋಗು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೇ ಕೂಡ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದಿಗೆ. ಅದು ಜಮ್ಮಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಂದಿರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಲಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಇದು ಬತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ಆದಿವಾಸಿ ಸಮುದಾಯನಿಗೆ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಅವರ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ, ಸಂಪ್ರದಾಯ, ಆಚಾರ ವಿಚಾರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡ ಕಳೆದು ಹೋಗುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬುಡಕಟ್ಟು ಸಮುದಾಯ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಕಳೆದು ಹೋಗುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಹಂತಕ್ಕೆ ತಲುಪ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರೆ ನೇರಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇದು ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಆಗುವಂತ ಜಮ್ಮದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಡೆಯುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಇದು ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಒಳಗಿರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಆಗುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಇದು ಆಗಿರುವಂತದ್ದಾಗಿದೆ. ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಇದು ಅವರ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ವಿಧಾನನೇ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ವಿಧಾನ ಕಾಡುಗಳನ್ನೇ ಸರ್ವನಾಶ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅನುಗುಣವಾಗಿರುವಂತ ರೈಲು ಕಂಬಿ ಅಳವಡಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಸೋದರ ಅಳವಡಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಧ್ಯಯನ ರೂಪಲು ಅಳವಡಿಸಿ ಹುಲಿಗಳನ್ನ ಸರ್ವನಾಶ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಟ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಳವಡಿಸಿ ಸಸ್ಯರಾಶಿಗಳನ್ನ ಬೇಕಾದ ಸರ್ವನಾಶ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯವರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇವರಿಗೆ. ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಆ ತರ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹಳೆ ವಿಚಾರ ಆಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ ತಾಜ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಅನ್ನೋದಿಗೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ ಅವರು ಇಷ್ಟು 40 ಎಕರೆಷ್ಟು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ವಿಚಾರ, ಅದನ್ನೇ ಹೋರಾಟ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದೇ ಆದಿವಾಸಿಗವೇ ಸೇರುಡೋದನ್ನೇ ಗೆದ್ದದು. ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಜಮ್ಮ ಉಳಿಸೋಡಿಗೆ ನೇರ ಕೂಡ ಆಳೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ತರ ಹಲವು ರೂಪಾಲು ಸುಮಾರು ರೀತಿಯ ಒಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅವರು ಮೇಲೆ ಜಮ್ಮದ ಮೇಲೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪರಿಣಾಮವೇ ಬೀರ್ತದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಇದು ನಾಳೆ ಉಳಿಗಾಲ ಕಾರಣ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ಆಳಲಾಗ್ತದೆ.
ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರೋ ಜಾಗ, ಆ ಕಡೆ ನಡೀತಿರೋ ಹೋರಾಟ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎರಡು ಮಾತನ್ನ.
ಯಾವುದು
ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋರಾಟ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಈ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಎದುರಾಗ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎರಡು ಮಾತು.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ವಿಧಾನ ಅವರು ಮಾಡೋಂಥ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ವಿಧಾನಗೂ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಲು ಬಹಳ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊದಲು ಅಂತದಿರೋವಂಥದ್ದು ಜಮ್ಮಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಮೊದಲು ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಮೊದಲು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಅದು ಮೊದಲ ಹಂತದ ಒಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ. ಅದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೇ ಮೊದಲು ತಿಳಿದೋಕು. ಆ ಒಂದು ಗಡಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಗಡಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಆಯಾಯ ಮನೆತನಗಳ ಗುಂಪು ಅವರ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನಗವಿಗೆ. ಅದು ಅರಣ್ಯ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅರಣ್ಯನ ಹೆಂಗೆ ನೋಡೋಕು, ಪ್ರಾಣಿನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಬಿಂಬಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇಗೆ, ಪಕ್ಷಿನ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬಿಂಬಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇಗೆ, ಅದು ಕೂಡ ತರದಿಗೆ. ಹುಲಿನೇ ತಾಯಿ ದೇವರ ಅಂತ ನಂಬಿತಿಗೆ, ಆನೆನೇ ಅಮ್ಮಳೆ ದೇವರ ಅಂತ ನಂಬಿತಿಗೆ, ಆಯರೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ನವಿಲಿನೇ ದೊಡ್ಡವರು ಅಂತ ನಂಬಿತಿಗೆ, ಚಿರತೆರೆ ತಾಯಿ ದೇವರ ಅಂತ ನಂಬಿತಿಗೆ. ಹಲವು ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿಯ ಮರ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಮರ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದೇ ನಂಗೆ ಒಂದು ಅದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಬುಡ ಅಂತ ನಂಗೆ ನಂಬಿಸ್ತಿಗೆ ಆದರೆ ಜಲಮೂಲಗಳು ಅನ್ನೋದಿಗೆ ತಾಯಿ ದೇವರ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಂಗೆ ಬಿಂಬಿಸ್ಕೊತಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಕಲ್ಲು ಬಂಡೆ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಕಲ್ಲು ಬಂಡೆ ಕೂಡ ನಂಗೆ ದೇವರಂತ ಬಿಂಬಿಸ್ತಿಗೆ ಈ ಥರ ನಂಗೆ ಮಾದರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಂಗೆ ನನ್ಗದೇ ಆದ ಒಂದು ನಂಗದ ಗಡಿಗಳ ಒಳಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯದಿಂದ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿರೋದು ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿರೋದು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಆಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಉಳಿದಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ನಂಗೆ ನಾ ಆಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ.
ಸರಿ ಸರಿ
এইখিনিতো হয় ন segregation
ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಡೀ ಜಗತ್ತಿನ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಸರಳ ಜೀವನದ ಬದುಕಿನ ಆಧಾರದಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು ಎಲ್ಲೇದಿಗೆ ಇಡೀ ಆದಿವಾಸಿಗಳು ಮಾತ್ರ ಅದು ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೇರ ಆಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ.
এইটো আগতে ইম্পোর্ট কৰা হৈছে
ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಯಾನದಿಗೆ ಸರಳ ಜೀವನ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ವಿಧಾನ ಯಾನದಿಗೆ ಉಳಿಸೋದು ಬಳಸೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡ ಯಾನದಿಗೆ ಇದು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಜಗತ್ತಿನದ್ದೇ ಅವರ ಕಂಡೋಕರಾದ್ರೆ ನೇರ ಆಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ.
Sorry. Translate. I just translate.
Yeah. Thanks.
So Tilma basically said that he is the president of the Nagarole Jamapale Hakkustapana Adivasi Jamapale Hakkustapana Samiti, and also an elder of Community Network Against Protected Areas. And he started off by saying about the recent foot march that was organized in Nagarole by the indigenous communities of Jenukuruba, Betakuruba, Paniya and Yarava, who are people who live in Nagarole forest. All of them got together and walked around 90 kilometers across for 13 days, covering from one village to the other by walk, raising awareness of the rights of the people on their land, and also about how conservation is killing their lands and how conservation is forcefully displacing people out of their lands, and how because of conservation the entire landscape is being forcefully reoriented for tourism purposes, and that was discussed widely in all of the village council meetings, and all the village councils passed village council resolutions against such practices, and the village councils have a legal standing in India under the Forest Rights Act. So all these councils passed resolutions against tourism, against theft of their lands in the name of tiger conservation and national parks. And further, he went on to say that in the name of conservation, in the last 120-30 years, beginning from 1860s onwards till now, Nagarole forest has been used as in the name of conservation for some or the other projects. One, they have divided the whole Nagarole forest into different reserve forests. Nalkeri forest, Hatgut forest, Arikeri forest. So different areas have been classified in different ways. And then they declared it as a game sanctuary in 1955. Then came the national park in the 80s. Then in 2007, it was declared as a tiger reserve. So in the last so many years of 130, 40 years, the people, indigenous communities, their rights, and they were never consulted or consented to any of these projects. And it's a compounding historical injustice that has been happening over the people of Nagarole. And this Padayatra, this foot march that they organized, was sort of a challenge, as an assertion of this against this compounding historical injustice that is happening to the people, the lands, the forest, and the wildlife. So, and to the question of what conservation is, and in terms of the forest conservation, the way the forest department or the conservation NGOs or the state, how it does see conservation, he says their idea of conservation is with creating trenches, creating solar fences, putting up railway rods, this steel iron rods across the forests, and even forest department offices which are inside the forest, they are surrounded by solar fences. So their idea of conservation is always to sort of keep the animals within the prison. Their idea of conservation is not something that is a natural flow, or in the way how in the natural way animals can live. And they see a clear separation, to what Mordecai was also saying. They see a clear separation between people, animals, and forests. So they want all of these as three different categories separated from each other. So, and he said that our indigenous people have a very different idea of conservation. He said that, for example, the Jainakuruba communities, they have different clan systems within the Jainakuruba communities. Timana comes from the clan of the tigers. Shivu comes from the clan of the elephants. So there are different clans that they come from, and each clan have shared boundaries. So, and this was how traditional governance used to happen in terms of taking care of the wildlife, in terms of taking care of the forests. And they have so many sacred deities which revolves around wildlife. Tiger is a sacred spirit. Elephant is a sacred spirit. Wild dog is a sacred spirit. There are trees. There are streams. All of them are part of the cosmological culture in the everydayness of how people live their life. And that whole entire way of life is being disturbed by conservation, fortress conservation. And he also mentioned about in the late 2000 when the Taj Resort, the big Taj company, wanted to build resort within the Nagarole. It was not the forest department, it was not the conservation NGOs, it was neither any of the upper caste or upper class people who have so much of sympathy for animals these days. These were not the people who drove away the Taj resorts. It was we who drove away the Taj resort in the 2000s. And today the struggle still continues. We want our lands, our clan spaces, our clan sacred clan spaces back, and that is our fight. And conservation is, which is hailed as fortress conservation, which is said to be as saving tigers, saving leopards, saving elephants, is a big lie. And only when we Adivasi indigenous people assert our vision of conservation over our lands, we can save our lands and kick these people out.
Thank you so much, Rajan. Thank you, Thimanna, and thank you, Shibuda, also for illuminating us with the nuances of this struggle for Nagarhole, for these community lands in Karnataka, and what it could mean to all of us actually. This brings us close to our home in Assam, where we have very few voices from the communities impacted by conservation politics around protected area. We have with us Pranab Dole, a political and human rights activist hailing from Bukakhat in Kaziranga. Dole has tirelessly worked with marginalized sections of Assam for more than a decade, taking up the issue of rights of people living around the park. The repeated human rights violations and evictions of marginalized and alienated by past and people alienated by past and current dispensation. Together with the support from indigenous communities, Dole has led successful campaigns against ill-conceived, environmentally destructive projects like the solar power parks and the expansions of big hotels in Kaziranga. Thank you, Pranav, for joining us. Pranav, it would be great if you can tell us how you can relate to Dr. Ogada and Thimmanna's experience or Shibuda's experience with your experience of witnessing the fortress conservation in Kaziranga. Over to you. I think Pranav, you're on mute. You're on mute. Just
Hi, yeah, thank you, Anupam, and yeah, it's always a great pleasure and an honor to be like having a conversation with Dr. Ogada and Thimanna, who has been a teacher and also like a comrade standing together in this struggle against this whole fortress colonial model of conservation that that is being propagated across the country in India. And also, I mean, I wish a very happy new year to everyone present here, and we hope 2026 we all can make it better for communities struggling for their rights. And as Anupam said, I'm based out of Kaziranga, and it's been, growing up here has been has given us a lot of lived experience to talk about and also reflect on the idea of what a fortress model of conservation looks like, and also to bring in a lot of similarities what Dr. Ogada spoke about, like the whole idea of rhino being projected as this emblematic animal that can go beyond the idea of communities, beyond the idea of human rights or the rights of communities, and that they can use this poor animal to like commit land grab, commit human right violations, and there's like a huge cartel, I would say, or a nexus like that works towards building that up. I mean, pitting communities against certain species of animals, like who, if they could like have their vote, I mean, definitely would not want like such a model of conservation to be propagated anywhere. And Thimanna spoke about how the community, like they come from inside, I mean, that space where Nagarhole or the Rajiv Gandhi National Park has been put upon them, and now suddenly their homes are being taken away and they are being told that you can't live here. So that struggle persists, and it's a historical struggle right now where uh, their village, couple of their villages, after 30 years of being evicted from their place, from their ancestral spaces, have reclaimed and come back to live there, and they are continuing with the struggle, which is already past a couple of months, and there is a day-to-day struggle going on with the forest department and also the ministries. And I would like request everyone to like put up a voice for the people of Nagarhole in this struggle. Since I mean, a lot of aspects like on an level of the idea of what fortress conservation or what the idea of conservation that is being globally pushed, and also how like the day-to-day challenges are, I would like to just reflect on a little on what kind of uh, roles that the forest departments or the conservation NGOs, I mean, who that play around these spaces. And and you have like a lot of organizations like, and I won't shy away from naming organizations like say WWF or Inoki in Assam. Then you have Elephant Family, Wildlife Trust of India, like yeah, I mean a lot of them, like who claim to be working around these areas, say around Kaziranga. But then at the same time, if we go back like a decade, I mean, not even too long, I mean, just a decade back, we can see that uh, how the immense amount of indiscriminate violation of human rights have taken place. Because like now the policies of the forest department and the government, the whole idea of conservation is becoming very militarized, where they're creating like combat styled guards, I mean forest rangers, who are like armed to their teeth, and using like modern techniques of spying on people, like different intelligence services, and not amount, I mean, not only sufficing in that, they also like coerce and penetrate into households, into communities, where they build this network of informers for them. As a result of which, what happens is like the whole cohesive community that we find in these areas, I mean, gradually crumbles down. Like people
মোৰ
start
বস্তু
like
আচলতে
say
বস্তু না তৈয়াৰ হয়
doubting each other, because I mean they always find like ways and means to manipulate and
মানুহ এটাই
enter into
এই
communities
বিলখন
and pit
কেনেকে ল'ব
people against each other, and as a result of which like lot of
বিলখনত কি কি আছে সেইবোৰ
innocent and young people get victimized. I mean, if you just look into this report, I mean, which was done by the Hindustan Times around 2016 by Danish Raja, it's called Horns of a Dilemma. So where like we worked with him to showcase like what this kind of an militarized conservation has meant for Kaziranga, how like hundreds of people, like hundred of people have been brutally encountered, and without having to follow any kind of like laws and legalities. I mean, human right principles, not only internationally but also nationally and in the state, gives people certain rights. I mean, even if a person is killed, then there has to be a certain process of inquiry and investigation, and a certain way of like trying to make things clear and transparent, like what actually went into this whole process where a person is killed inside a forest. But then you also, the forest department also manages to like amend or sections of the law by which they get orders like to use arms, or which we can say shoot at sight orders, and they get like now, you know, like they have their own policing system where they can arrest, where they can arrest and torture and use their own judiciary as well, which they're demanding, like forest courts, where they'll be again trying their own cases, where like I don't think like the people would be having much voice on how to defend themselves. So, which is very dangerous. I mean, nothing should be left out, like to be completely running amok without having a democratic process of justice delivery system, or a democratic process of transparency and keeping in check and control. And yeah, this is what the forest department has become. And now Kaziranga model, which has more than like maybe more around 1500 to 2000 armed guards and multiple layers of guards, and this is the model that they want to replicate across tiger reserves in the country. And already Nagarhole has been facing the brunt of it, because they're exercising the same model over there. And this is one. And what and the other, like parallelly, what all runs around is like as a result of this, now communities living around the park or in the forest areas, they are not able to exercise even their civil liberties and civil rights. I mean, people, communities cannot be celebrating their own festivals, like with the pomp and gaiety and like camaraderie or oneness, like how they would do. And their sacred sites are being blocked, their fishing grounds are being blocked. Not only that, like even if someone, like communities generally, I mean, people go to each other's house in the evening, and now it's even a risk for communities to venture out of their homes at night. You never know, because like where the forest guard or the patrolling duty guards would come, and like what kind of a scene, what kind of a situation they would create. Because there has been a lot of instances where we have had to like uh, go and release people at, at, at the middle of the night, like when normal citizens have been subjected to this kind of coercion and illegal form of harassment. uh, and now one more aspect where, like, yeah, in this whole affair, like when the organizations that come in, like, or the forest department, who work very closely with organizations like WWF and Oroinok and some other people who this claim to be working on planting trees or agroecology or livelihood of communities. And mostly what they do is, in they catch people young. It's a reschooling. It's a very dangerous design that they are doing, no? The whole idea of uh, conservation, the whole idea of a holistic living of human and non-human beings together, communities have that, like, which Thimanna was speaking about. But what do they school young minds? Like in every villages, you'll find their agents going in, like these NGOs. They'll bring them out, summer schools, school camps, these, that, like love your animals and stuff like that. I mean, without the love of communities and respect of for the animals, like the elephants and tigers and rhinos, they wouldn't have survived for so long, because the agricultural communities are the ones who are feeding these animals. But here, what they're like, the reschooling is like, oh, like how you should be very wary. I mean, they're creating like this whole generation of young people as informers. Basically, they are saying like, oh, this is how you should protect the forest. If someone comes, you should inform us. If there is someone, you should tell us. Like they will be giving numbers. They'll be having this networks. They'll be doing free recharge to these young kids, like class 9, 10, 11, 12 kids, like, and they're supposed to like take a phone and inform this department and NGO people, like who is coming to their village, what is happening, what's the discussion going on. I mean, this is very sinister. It's very scary. And it really needs a serious, I mean, effort and a strong stand from the civil society and communities to undo all this. Like, yeah, and these are things like that's really going in deep. And this design, it's like, yeah, it's only growing because they are investing money in that. Like, yeah, and these are the ways that they come in. So yeah, we all need to be very aware about this the whole idea of conservation that's being propagated. And most of these organizations, basically, they only look for their own profit. And now where the money comes from, and it's mostly being now in Kaziranga, you have Vedanta, like an company globally, which has been destroying forest and homes of people uh, by like mining bauxite and mining oil and So here in Kaziranga, what's that? They are doing their what carbon credit business here. Like you destroy a hill in Yamgiri, like which is the god of the Dongria Kon people, and then you come and invest money. You destroy the home of the Holok Gibbons in Holongapara, which is very close to here. You get some oil wells there, destroy the homes of the Nagas, and you invest money in Kaziranga to do what? To arm their guards, give them guns, build them like scientific, like all technologies for them. I mean, this is not done. Like, and we seriously need to like undo this and stand together and fight against it. I guess yeah, there's a lot to say, but I would just sum up with this, and I think like my time is up as well, so I'll sum up with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranab, for explaining the important facets of the conservation politics and connecting these geographies, struggles of the people in your address. While listening to three of you, this critique of mainstream conservation agenda is not just necessary, but it needs to have more people questioning the outcomes that some of these conservation agendas serve. I thank you all, and I take this opportunity to open up the conversation with questions and comments by our viewers. Please note that we have very less time left, so and for some reason our chats are not working properly on this. So I would request you to raise your hand. I would come to you if you have like keep your questions really short. And we have, I guess, about 10 minutes to kind of wind up the entire thing, so we can have these questions from your end. And I would just expect you to put your raise hand icon, which is there on the bottom of the screen, and then we can carry on with the conversation, I guess. So I open this discussion again. So yeah, let's hear from some of you who have joined in.
I think yeah, we can also keep the discussion on.
Yes, yes. So for now, I think there are. I mean, for Dr. Ogada, you have. I guess you already have heard so much about the conservation model that we follow in India, and you've heard Pranab also what he was talking about, that there are these extractive companies which are coming in and trying to decimate, uh, and then you address these questions in your new book also, that on the greenwashing. So how is it playing right now in, say, in this issue of the great I mean, when we have heard about the hotels coming in and blocking the paths of the animals, how do you uh, how do you see that entire conflict playing out before you, and what is the what is the scenario right now, if you can illuminate on that aspect?
Yeah. This it's there are two main threats to the communities that live in these natural areas. One, of course, is the development of tourism facilities,
Right.
because in northern Kenya it is very dry, and there's wildlife there. So the communities keep the hilltops grazing, hilltop forests as dry season grazing areas.
So আমার sequences
So
one
they
hour
only
পর
go up there when it
continuing
is
আছে
very dry. But
বলবো,
now
হ্যাঁ?
all
It
these
can be used
hilltop
as B-roll
grazing
and
areas
between
and the
sequences as well,
springs,
হ্যাঁ?
they are developing
এটার
tourism
কিন্তু হয়
lodges
এটার অলপ bites
in
জন্য,
those places
হ্যাঁ?
because all the wildlife likes coming there.
So, but this is the
So
market
now
sequence
they're also, this is
can
making
work with.
it's
হয়
completely
খুব
destroying the
structured
food
business।
security and climate
কোনটা যেটা
resilience of these
কোনটা
communities
যেটা
up there. So
দিন, হ্যাঁ?
tourism is one
Officer একটা
problem.
টাইম টেবল
The
যাবে,
other one,
and
the
then
other
her
major one in
yeah, she
Kenya
talked about
is
all these
the
things.
carbon
So Sunday junto lunch
markets,
hoy, that's our main interview.
because
So
carbon
we include
markets
the bites
involve
for yeah.
they're doing some
And
leases,
I've
they're
kind of
leasing
arranged them
community
by some
lands
sections. So these are
for
blocks. Okay.
25,
So at a
30,
block
even
jodi
40
banailo,
years,
then maybe
40
I
year
was
leases.
thinking আমি timetable
And
to
when
complete
they're
করে
using
we
it
can
as
come
a
to the Sunday lunch, but it's a
carbon
little too
sink,
late. So
the
me yeah
communities are not allowed to
will
graze the
start.
animals
So she
there. They
starts
cannot
talking about
pick
these things
firewood
so time will come
or
yad gidi.
collect
So
water
these are
from
the
those
small
rivers,
sequences
which
we
is
have to likha ase.
which again is another
Making
problem,
breakfast,
because when
making
the
lunch,
drought
on way
comes,
to work is the
they
same
all
thing
need to use
out
those
here.
forests, they need to use the
So
rivers
I think
and
first
all this.
আমি
And
এটাই
40
কাটিয়ে
years is at least two
Okay.
generations They will be, a baby will be born and grow to an
These are
adult and
even
have
these are
another
small
baby
kintu
and
their
grow to an
own
adult
sections
So
also.
before
basically,
the
মই
end of
এইটো কাটি
this
যাওঁ এতিয়া
Eight to cut it.
before the end
14
of
পৰা
this
এইটো
Achha, but
this
here
agreement.
13, 14
And the problem also
separately
is
makes
that a
us
lot of
because she said it in
the
different,
a
but
lot
it's the
of
same schedule of
the
Patha Koisa by
elders in
বাট
Kenya
ৰ'বা এইটো কোনটো ফল্ডাৰ
are
পৰা আনিছা
also are being
lunch.
compromised by these
গোটেইখিনি লাঞ্চ কিছে
big
Eta folder
multinationals
test.
to get into this carbon
Okay, the
trading
one where
agreement.
she's
So we are
wearing
trying to in Kenya,
the
we
red
really need
sari.
very much to empower the youth in these areas because some of these 40-year agreements, it's being signed by someone who is maybe is 80 or 85 years old. Even he will not be there
কথা এটা হ'ল
when this
নহয়
thing ends. And the other thing is also the history. It's very closely tied because when India got independence in 1947,
সেইটো চাউলৰ কথা
a
কোৱা
lot
নাই
of the colonial conservation people, they moved to Kenya, the British ones.
অঁ
So even like Jim Corbett, he's buried in Nyeri, which is about 50 kilometers from where I live. And there are many others like Rodi Adamson, and a lot of the ranchers here were former soldiers, British soldiers from the Raj in India. So a lot of the histories are shared, and I think if we can exchange a lot of more lessons, then they can know what's going on. If we see that the problems facing communities in Kenya are very similar to those facing rural communities in India, I think if we can share these lessons, then we can make a lot of progress.
Thank you so much. I have someone with a question. You unmute yourself, Braj Kashyap, and please also indicate who is this question for.
Hi, good afternoon. My question is,
Hi.
I think, generally for our speaker panel, as it's a broad-ended question. I also work somewhat in conservation, specifically around human-wildlife conflict, coexistence, interface, and politics involved. And throughout the years, we have been seeing this issue coming up where uh, communities don't really benefit from conservation in an equitable way. That has been a problem that has come up time and time again. I know we are talking about fortress conservation here, and it's an incredibly, incredibly nuanced topic. Yes, but in many, many cases, we have a lot of examples where communities are beginning to aid certain forms of conservation which they were historically against due to betterment of resource sharing and benefit sharing systems and with inclusive models for having their say in how conservation should be done. Uh, Specifically, like this is probably taking a book from some of the more well-run sustainable use systems in Africa and certain parts of Central Asia. But I'm curious to see in the lens of our speakers here today, would better systems of resource and benefits sharing and trickle down benefits from the conservation models here would have an effect on how local people have their relationship with the wildlife and the administration running these areas.
Thank you, Mr. Kashyap. I think Pranab, would you like to take on this question? And we'll also come to other panelists also. But Pranab, you might have something on this. You've worked on the idea of benefit sharing also earlier, so you might want to throw some light on the entire issue.
I mean, it's a huge subject for sure, and here, like when it comes to a fortress model of conservation, I come from my basic understanding of having rights for the people, like who should be deciding, like communities who reside, communities who basically are going to be affected by such kind of a project. And and in most of the cases, it's that's not what is sin, like the whole exercise. And so if the free prior informed consent, or like an say absolute right of the communities to decide, like if they want a certain project to be there in their area or not. They should have that discretion. And it's also like multifaceted, right? The whole idea of environmental protection as well as degradation, and it can be say favoring a certain section, and then completely dismantling the efforts or like the existence of a certain section. And if the whole idea is like to commodify a certain space and call it conservation, I mean, I guess like, yeah, it's somewhere like we are being very unjust, not only to the communities but also to the larger species around that space. So I would say like, yeah, unless I mean the communities have like their own which needs time, like their own idea of like how to continue living with spaces that they have been. I mean, it should be left to their discretion. I mean, it cannot be imposed. I mean, if there is such an urgency, and if like here we have the whole idea of like say voluntary relocation and stuff, but in India, rarely, I mean, I doubt like if there's any space like where a voluntary resettlement or rehabilitation has taken place. It's always forced. I mean, so we have like certain guidelines that are given to us by the Forest Right Act, and also other rights. I mean, other acts of our country in India. If I come to India,
গোটেইখিনি ইণ্টাৰভিউ
those
ইয়াতে
needs
আছে
to
ন
be primarily, now we're talking about if those
আৰু
are
কিবা
being
এড হ'ব
respected or not. Yeah, and
হ'ব
then who are the largest? I mean. Destroyers of forest or polluters, we all know, the mining companies or the huge industries or interest of monoculture cultivation and stuff there. I mean, there should be like strict I mean discussion on this as well, and not like the communities should not have to bear the brunt of this whole idea of conservation that is being propagated. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Pranav. Would Dr. Ogada comment on this question by Mr. Kashyap? You know, how does trickle down benefit sharing, does it really work? I think that's what the sense that I got from the question, but there could be more also. But what do you think of this? The idea of benefit sharing with the communities. Is that a way forward, or there's something more to that? If Dr. Ogada can throw some light on this.
Yeah, thanks, Anupam. Yeah, the question Braz Kashyap asked is very interesting, and it goes to the core of the problem. Conservation, like you see what the communities like the Jenu Kuruba communities and these other communities that live around these areas, they have kinship with the elephants, the tigers, the rhinos, the various species there. The historical conservation was never business. It was not capitalism. They were not paid money to keep the forest intact. And what we are doing today is we are making, by we, I mean conservation professionals, we are making conservation a business, a capitalist business. And capitalism, by its nature, is not fair. It has never been. I don't think it ever will be. So that's a problem when we attach money to it. In the places where we have established tourism facilities, I think we can do better benefit sharing, but we should not be establishing any more tourist facilities as a reason for conservation. So tourism should be a byproduct of conservation. If the Adivasi people have kept a nice forest, tourists should feel happy to go for their hikes there and all that. But don't build a hotel and move the Adivasi people out and say that you are going to give them some money. That's the problem that's been happening all over in Africa as well. Historically, for the last 5,000 years, nobody has been paid for tourism. Now we want to start it to make it the purpose just in the last 50 years or 100 years. That is very difficult. We are trying to replace something of many millennia with something of 2 decades or 3 decades, and that's why we have a problem. And when you make tourism facilities, it makes the people the Adivasi people or Maasai people or any other people, it makes them depend on outsiders. Tourism is not a livelihood, it is a dependency. So when something like COVID lockdown comes, they will be in problems. Or a terrorist attack, anything, tourism is vulnerable to so many things. So tourism is actually very unsustainable economically. It's almost like fashion and music and that kind of thing. So I think we should improve the benefit sharing for the tourist industries that we have, but we should not be starting new tourism industries in conservation areas.
Thanks, Dr. Ogada. This question, this idea of benefit sharing, I think it's very interesting what Mr. Kashyap had raised. So we have people from the Jenu Koruba community who have been struggling and, in Nagarhole and demanding their forest rights. They were evicted from their own villages and now they are reclaiming that. So how does if Thimmanna could answer this, that has there been any benefit sharing from the tourism activities? How has it sort of worked out or not worked out for the community as such? This idea of conservation benefits sharing and declaration of a protected area, could Thimmanna and then Rajan, of course, like, could answer this concerns. Are you
ತಿಮ್ಮಣ್ಣ,
here? Yeah.
ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆ ತಮಿಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಶಿವು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಇದು ಒಂದು கன்சர்வேஷன் ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ஆகிட்டு இருக்குல்ல, அதுல வந்து நம்மள ஆதிவாசி சமாஜத்தையும் அதுல சேர்த்து நம்மளும் அதை பத்தி டிசைட் பண்ணி நம்மளுக்கும் ஒரு ப்ராஃபிட் வர்ற மாதிரி, இல்ல ரிசார்ட் கட்டுறப்ப, இல்ல டூரிசம்னால, இல்ல சஃபாரினால நம்மளுக்கும் ஒரு ப்ராஃபிட் வர்ற மாதிரி நம்ம ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ நம்மளையும் ಒಳಗೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ವಿಧಾನ ஏற்படுத்தினா அதை நம்ம ஒத்துக்குவோமா, அதனால கம்யூனிட்டிக்கு பெனிஃபிட் ஆகுமா அப்படின்னு கேக்குறோம்.
அண்ணா ஒரு நிமிஷம், நான் டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்றேன், அது வரைக்கும் கொஞ்சம் மியூட்.
ಜಸ್ಟ್ 2 seconds.
ಅದೇ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಈಗ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏನೋ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲೂ ಈಗ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಸರ್ಲು ಪ್ರವಾಸೋದ್ಯಮ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಅದೇ ಸಫಾರಿ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ರೆಸಾರ್ಟ್ಗ ಇರಬಹುದು, ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹೋಟೆಲ್ಗ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಈ ತರದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಸರ್ಲು ಬರಂತ ಯಾನ ಅನುದಾನಗಳು ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಂಗನೇನು ಒಳಗೊಂಡಂತೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅನುದಾನಗನೇ ನಂಗ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಬಳಸಬಲೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗ್ತದೆಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಸಾಧ್ಯ, ಈ ತರ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇತ್ತು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ.
ಹಲೋ,
ಹೇಳಿ ಅಣ್ಣ.
ಅದೇ ಆ ಥರದ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಕಾಣಿ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನನಗೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗಲೇ ತಾಜ್ರಂತ ರಿಸಾರ್ಟ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ನಂಗೆ ಅದನ್ನೇ ಬಾಡ ಅಂತ ಓಡಿಸಿದ ಕಾರಣವೇ ಅದು. ನಂಗ ಜಮ್ಮದ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪರಿಣಾಮ. 1ರಿಂದ 10 ಆಗ್ತದೆ, 10ರಿಂದ 20 ಹುಟ್ಟಿಕೊತ್ತದೆ. ಕಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲೇ ಉಳಿತದೆ, ಆಗ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಅದರಿಂದ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಒಳಪಟ್ಟಂತವೇ ವಿಚಾರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅದಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ನಡೆ ನುಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡ ನಂಗ ಒಳಗೆ ಅದಿಗೆ. ಅದನ್ನೇ ತಂದರೆ ಆದಿವಾಸಿಗಳ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಅಸ್ತಿತ್ವವೇ ಸರ್ವನಾಶ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನನ್ನದು ಅದಿಗೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗಲೇ ಕಳೆದೋಗ್ತಾ ಅದಿಗೆ, ಅದು ಬರದೇ ಇರೋದು ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಅಂತ ಆಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ.
ನಂಗ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಬೇಡ, ನಂಗ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಒಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಇದೆ, ಇವರು ಬೇರೆ ಒಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆಯ
ಹೌದು ಬೇಡ. ಆ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಕಾಣಿ ಬಾಡ ಅಂತ ಆಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ನಂಗದಾದ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಅದಿಗೆ, ವಿಧಾನ ಅದಿಗೆ, ಅದು ನಂಗಾಗಿ ಅದಿಗೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ಕಲಿಯಲಿ, ನಂಗನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಕಲಿಯಲಿ, ಅದನ್ನೇ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಂಗ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದು ಮಾಡ್ಲೆಸಾಗ ಅದು ಹೊರ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅವರು.
ಸರಿ. So what Thimmanna is saying that he does not think that such a sharing model will work, because if it had worked, if we had thought about it long years, we would have allowed the Taj resort to be built in Nagarhole long years ago. The reason why we opposed the building of Taj Resort inside Nagarole is primarily because what today comes in the name of tourism or resort building in seeking pleasure, aesthetic pleasure in seeing animals or forests, uh, is not the way how we do conservation or how we protect the forests or wildlife. First point. And the second point, he said that if needed, the people who are really sympathetic and have really concern for wild animals and saving forest, you come to us and live with us and try living a life like us, how we live in the forest. So you better learn things from us rather than suggesting us what needs to be done in terms of saving wildlife or forests.
Thank you so much for this. It's actually very interesting because there's already, like, there's so much of talk about conservation being a top-down approach. It's just coming from top. People who decide on their comfort in their comfortable areas, they decide on what to do, how people should live close, who are from these habitats, how they should live. So I don't see too many questions actually, because I think we have some time with us. So anyone who wants to kind of pose something for all our panelists, or anything in particular, something about Kenya maybe that you want to know. Also, if I yeah.
No, I was just trying to translate if Sima has some questions to Mordecai on Kenya or anything like that. Can I?
Does Thimma have a question on
Yeah. So
okay, great.
சிமண்ணா இல்ல சிவு ஏதாவது கேள்வி கேட்குமா மோர்டிகாய்க்கு கென்யால சம்ரக்ஷணை எப்படி நடக்குது என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு ஏதாவது ஒரு சின்ன கொஸ்டின் ஏதாவது இருந்தா கேட்கலாம்.
ರಜಣ್ಣ ಅದೇ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಕೆನ್ಯಾ ಬಾಗಲು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಹೆಸರಲು ನಂಗೆ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಸ್ಥಳಾಂತರ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸ್ಥಳಾಂತರ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಂಗೆ ಸಮುದಾಯ ಯಾವ ತರದ ಅದರ ವಿರುದ್ಧದ ಧ್ವನಿ ಎತ್ತುತ್ತಾ ಅವರಿಗೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಗಟ್ಟಿಯಾಗಿ ನಿಲ್ತಾ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಎರಡನೇದು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಹೆಸರಲು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಭಾಗಲು ಇದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಎದುರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಹೊರಗಿನ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗ ನಂಗ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಂದು ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ನಂಗ ಪ್ರದೇಶದ ಮೇಲೆ ಹದ್ದು ಮೀರಿ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಹೆಸರಲು ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅವರನ್ನೇ ಹೋರಾಟಲ್ಲೇ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಹೊರ ಹಾಕಿ ನಂಗ ಅಸ್ತಿತ್ವನೇ ಉಳಿಸಬಲೆ ಇರೋಂತ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಯಾನ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ನಂಗ ಆ ಭಾಗದ ನಂಗ ಸಮುದಾಯ ಆದಿವಾಸಿ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ತರ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ವಿರುದ್ಧದ ಹೋರಾಟ ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ಸೇರಿ ಒಗ್ಗಟ್ಟಾಗಿ ನಿಲ್ಲೋದು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು
Mother question already or solitaire. Second question. So what Shivu and Tima both have raised a couple of questions in terms of Kenya. So first question that you have already answered, I think Mordecai, he was asking that the forced relocation is happening in Kenya as well, whether in the name of national park and tiger reserve. And subsequent questions are there community resistance against such models of conservation in Kenya? And the third question was if and they understand that all across the world conservation paradigm or the fortress conservation model is equally the same, where outsiders come and dictate the people how to take care of the forest, what needs to be done with the wildlife, how to re-engineer the landscape, and so on and so forth. If the pattern of fortress conservation across the world is the same, how all of these indigenous communities who are facing the brunt of it can come together in kicking them out.
Over to you, Dr. Ogata, if you want to take this. I think this.
Yeah, thank you. There is relocation now, but a lot of it is by some corruption. In that some investors come and say, we are coming to build a lodge, so you need to move out of here and we will give you money. Then after some time, the money does not come. So there are a lot of the investors in tourism. They are bribing the government officials, including from the Ministry of Tourism in Kenya. They are also bribing the local members of the county assemblies, the local representatives, and also bribing some of the elders. So a lot of the resistance or the fighting sometimes you find there is fighting within the community. You find the young people are now fighting against the elders because the elders are signing agreements. Some of these elders do not even understand English and the agreements are in English, but they are given some money and they sign. So there is a problem, and but after these conservation areas are formed, that's when we now have some fighting, because in northern Kenya there's a lot of guns, and when the dry season comes, you have people with their animals, they want to graze the animals to get water and grass, so they come with guns and there is violent resource conflict. So there is this, it's a big problem for our security. And I think the most important thing is that if we can share the lessons of, to make indigenous people share the lessons around the world, that their lifestyle is the best in conservation, is the best in carbon footprint, and is the most sustainable. So if we can share, if communities in India can see that other communities in Kenya are living this sustainable life, and communities in Kenya can see that people in India are also living sustainable lives. Because the problem, a lot of communities think that everybody is advancing and we are left behind. They don't know that there's communities in India living in the forests and living sustainably. And communities in India also maybe don't know that there's communities in Kenya living sustainably in the forest. So I think if we share these lessons and pictures and even videos and that kind of thing, it will really help communities on both sides to know that they're together and have solidarity about it.
Thank you, Dr. Ogada. We have a question from Ravi Chelam. And then I'll come to Larpe Sananka also. But I think this one question where Dr. Chelam is asking, is foreign capital the driving force behind disposition of land from native communities in the name of conservation in Kenya? I think Dr. Ogada would quickly answer this.
Yeah, 100% foreign capital. There's foreign capital in terms of investments, investors in tourism industry and tourism multinationals, and there's foreign capital also in terms of philanthropy, conservation grants, but it's 100% foreign capital.
Thank you. I'll come to Larpe Sananka. Could you unmute yourself and pose the question? And please indicate to whom the question is addressed to. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Hi, thanks. Can you pose your question, please?
Okay, maybe not so much of a question. Let me also put on my camera so that you could probably get to see me. Just to introduce myself, and thank you for this important conversation, first of all. My name is Larpe Sananka, and I serve as Mr. Tourism, Laikipia County. So probably for those who know or well conversed with modeling, so this is a title that you win through a pageant. And last year I was able to take part in a contest in Laikipia in Kenya. I come from Kenya, that is, and I won. And my role is genuinely to promote tourism within the county, as well as taking part in amplifying community voices at the heart of the position, given that I'm so passionate about conservation. I'm also the founder of a small CBO that is really coming up right now in Laikipia County, called Resilience and Conservation Network. At RCN, we advocate for innovative, community-led solutions to conservation challenges, and also examples of human-wildlife conflict. One example is our partnership with the Laikipia Cheetah Project, where we deployed automated river speakers to deter carnivores and reduce livestock relation, an approach that is really showing positive results. How I joined this conversation is through a friend, and I'm seeing him here right now. I know he's around, can hear me. Menita, hi to you. And I'll really say that Menita is really doing some good work around the conservation space in Laikipia County. I'm also glad to meet Dr. Ogad. I don't know we have such human resource around this space, and it's really a pleasure to see what you do and the contribution you're putting towards conservation. Hopefully, I think you'll Laikipia, and I'd really like to meet you at one point because I know, yeah, I can have a bond with you. So this conversation matters deeply to me because in Laikipia, I see daily how conservation policies directly shape livelihoods, culture, and to the extent, the dignity of the communities around. Normal conservation, as you all know, is whereby we have a trickle-down model whereby the government or the relevant authorities place rules and regulations, whereby in other cases we have the communities being separated from maybe the wildlife in this case. But how do you think of an inclusive conservation? Because inclusive conservation to me, it means recognizing the communities, maybe not as beneficiaries or buffers towards conservation, but as right holders, the decision makers, and the co-owners of the conservation processes. That's why I'm really interested in how we move from protectionist models to genuine community co-ownership. Some of us grew up, personally grew up in a place whereby you wake up in the morning, as the livestock, maybe say the cows are going to have the solstice in the morning, or let's say in the evening. They interact with the wildlife, animals like zebras, the gazelles, they're all around together. So there has been that coexistence. You cannot tell me a community that has been living with this wildlife since in existence, since we were born, our ancestors, does not know how to interact with this wildlife. You cannot tell me. So there is that indigenous knowledge that is still present till today amongst the community. And that is what we should integrate today to help us carry on forward the conservation processes. And I think it's not just around hybrids.
If you don't mind, could you just because we have other questions also, so could you just wind up your comment very quickly?
Actually, I'm done. Thank you. I'm actually done. So the point could be, or the question to maybe Dr. Ogada.
Yeah.
Please, how do we shift towards inclusive conservation models, whereby communities are treated as partners and not co-owners, rather than even threats? And maybe the tourism aspects. How does this continued exclusion affect sectors like the tourism and the survival of indigenous cultures? Because this is where they all coexist together. Thank you. Back to you, Anton.
Thanks. Dr. Ogada, would you? I think you said quite a bit about benefit sharing, but if you can quickly talk about livestock and what he was trying to say.
Just quickly, two things about Laikipia County, which is actually where I live. One thing I know that pastoralism and livestock raising is not just a livelihood; it's an identity amongst the Maasai, Samburu, and other ethnic groups around here, and it is also earns more money for the local people than tourism. That's a fact of the matter. So I think in terms of conservation, conservation should be to protect livelihoods and protect systems and ecosystems, river systems, forests, etc. We should conservation should not be protecting a geographical area. That's very primitive to fence or protect a geographical area. We should protect a river, protect a forest, protect the livelihoods of the people who live there, and protect the systems. I think the most inclusive way, the first thing we should do is that in Kenya we have a problem because we have something called Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. We should remove tourism from wildlife. We should separate these two things. So we know if we are conserving wildlife, we are conserving it because it's our heritage, it's precious to us and precious to the forests and all that. Then tourism can take advantage of what we have conserved. But what we should protect is the systems, the livelihood systems, the livestock rearing, whether it's farming like some of the places in India, because this is what feeds the people. Tourism does not feed communities. Tourism just gives some small handouts. But once we become dependent on tourism, then we have a problem. But tourism should go on and it should continue, but it should take advantage of what is already there. We should not create something new which was not there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ogada. We so are there any more questions or any comments that I think Saurav wanted to ask something, but is he? Saurav, you raised your hand earlier.
So yeah, my the question that I wanted to ask is already asked, but again, I would like to reflect on the point that I had the privilege to visit Kenya recently, and there I met Dr. Ogada. And while reading his book, The Big Conservation Lie, when I saw the first chapter of the book, there I saw there's a lot of elephant tusks being burned, and then when I encountered Ogada, and I referred him about the rhino horns being burned in our hometown. So it's the same thing. I mean, in 2017 in Kenya, they burned like 1,000 elephant tusks, and that they did the same in our hometown in Kaziranga. So I was also curious on how this forces of conservation forces works from the hard power to soft power to how public display about it. Although we from the ground see that the rhino horns being burned here, we see the reality, but the large part of the population, majority of it, doesn't realize how it again reflect to the point. So I just wanted to like add on to this thing, that my reflection on how I see comparing both Kenya and India, and I see it's not the same. It has different like context or stories, but again, in this structure and power dynamics, it works at the same workflow to exploit the indigenous and the local people. So I just wanted to add this lines.
Thank you, Saurav. I think would you, Dr. Ogada, would you say something? What do you think? Like, what does it symbolize of like rhino horns being burned, trying to give a message to the so-called world of hunters and poachers? What is your? How do you see that entire event?
I think these two events, the burning of tusks and also the burning of rhino horns. First of all, it's because conservation now has become a lot about optics. It's so much about optics and creating content for various media platforms. It is also a bit to sort of intimidate. I think it's something to intimidate the locals, to make a big fire there with the horns. It's almost like a threat to them, because otherwise it's not necessary to do it. If they could take the rhino horns and maybe they can even go and throw them in the Indian Ocean. Why do you have to make a fire there to show these people? Even the elephant tusk in Kenya, they could take them away and go and throw them in the Indian Ocean. But the thing is we are using a lot of optics, and if you look at the optics, it always shows that The animals, wildlife is endangered. The source of danger is local people, and the savior is foreign people. That is the simple conservation message in the global south. And that's what we need to change. That the savior must be the savior. We can have wildlife, then the savior of wildlife is local people. Foreign people are just visitors. But right now, foreign people are seen as the savior and local people are seen as the problem. And that's the problem with the content, even the movies. Even the movies. A short while ago, there was a movie made, Wild Karnataka, this movie made by Kalyan Verma. And I was telling him, why are you having David Attenborough doing the narration? Why isn't it an Indian guy with the Indian voice or Indian accent? Because this is India. And then they were even given an award for that narration in a British voice. But it's an Indian movie about Indian wildlife and the Indian landscapes. And that's the thing. It's like wildlife always needs a Western foreign influence, wildlife conservation, and that's what we need to escape from. It's like a prison where we need to escape. Yeah.
Uh, may I ask Pranav, what has been how do you see this act of burning rhino horn in Bukakhat? What has, because you've been talking, I think, quite a bit about around this idea of poaching, the repeated human rights violations which have occurred in the name of arresting poachers or something like that. How do you see these events from your end?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Ogada has given a lot of insights into it, and yeah, it's certainly like, I mean, how do you see it ontologically? What kind of effect like does it have on a community, like on a region, on a space? Like Kaziranga, like flaunted across the world as this space, like the greatest history or experiment or exercise of conserving the great Indian one-horn rhinoceros. And so yeah, along with with the big spectacle, it comes like this whole idea of complete control and domination over a area, over the people, and it's a show of might, where they want to tell you that, look, we are like huge. I mean, we are big. We are not going to like stop on anything like that has to do with rhino conservation, like and communities, like you better behave or else, like yeah, we have all this modern amenities and force and this big like huge like the symbol of the fire, right? I mean, and it's also like, yeah, in India you can't like skip the whole idea of this casteist thing, no? Like who are it's like the locals are poachers and the saviors are always the outsiders. That's the common narrative, right? There's no much nuance in like how you actually dissect this whole reality into the other factors, the failure of the state, the failure of the forest department. So here, like the fire symbol in India, I mean, you can't like escape the whole idea of caste and purification and everything, right? And mostly, yeah, within a space, like how you see like the people living in the forest, like how the othering happens, like I mean, what better like epistemological evidence than our great Jenukuruba community, the kind of experiments that is happening there. And so yeah, these are all like, yeah, it's all like a discourse that like I mean, tells their story, like benefits their idea of conservation. It's not people's idea of conservation or people's idea of co-living and coexistence, basically. Yeah. I think, yeah, Rajan would like to
Rajan,
come.
yeah. So Rajan, I think how does Thimmana or even Shibuda, how do they see this entire, because we see it from our end, like as researchers that, yeah, the Jenukuruba people, or say in Kaziranga, the Karbi or the missing people, they face the wrong end of the stake. They are criminalized. They are called poachers in some cases. And then there is, of course, like massive human rights violation. So how does it pan out in, say, in Nagarhole, among the community, among the Jenukuruba community? And could you, if any
Anupam,
experience?
can I just add one small question for the guys
Please,
in
please,
Nagahole?
please.
Yeah, there's the conservation, I found that in any African language, we do not have any word for conservation, because this is just the lifestyle, how we are living. I'm interested to see if any of the local languages in India, do they have any word for conservation?
Yeah.
So I can post this question, but I had this question already. We had a discussion with Tima, Shivu, and all the elders. Who, if there is a word for conservation in the Jenupurva language, and they said no. So the word that they use is Kannada word called Samrakshane. Samrakshane comes from Kannada, which is most of an upper caste, sort of a dominant language in Karnataka. Uh, but the indigenous language does not have a word for conservation because, yes, as you said, the very being of how they live in the forest itself is the way how they conserve. So there is no word for that. But to question that Anupam asked, should I just translate it to Tima?
Yes, please.
Timana? యాన ప్రశ్న అంటే காசிரங்கால இப்போ இவ்வளவு மிலிட்ரி எல்லா ஹியூமன் ரைட்ஸ் வயலேஷன் நிறைய பேர் சுட்டுக்கொலை பண்ணிருக்காங்க இந்த மாதிரி கென்யாலையும் நடக்குது எல்லா இடத்துலயும் நடக்குது அப்போ இப்ப நாகர்கோவில இப்ப எந்த மாதிரி பரிஸ்திதி இருக்கு நீங்க அதை எப்படி போராட்டம் பண்ணி அதை எப்படி தடுத்து வச்சிருக்கீங்க நீங்க அதை பத்தி அந்த மாதிரி நாகர்கோவில நடந்தா நீங்க என்ன பண்றது இப்ப இதுக்கு முன்னாடி இருக்கிற போராட்டத்தை நம்ம எப்படி எடுக்கணும்
இன்னொரு வாட்டி சொல்ல முடியுமாண்ணா
நீனே சொல்லலாம் இல்லைன்னா இப்ப காசிரங்கால நடக்கிற விஷயம் உனக்கு தெரியும் ஹியூமன் ரைட்ஸ் வயலேஷன் நிறைய பேரை சுட்டுக் கொள்றது அவங்க ஜம்மால இருந்து அவங்கள வெளியேற்றுறது அதெல்லாம் இருக்கு அது தவிர்த்து கென்யாலையும் அந்த மாதிரிதான் நடக்குது ரிசார்ட் கட்டுறது அங்கிருந்து மக்களை வெளியில எடுக்கிறது அந்த மாதிரி நடக்குது பிளஸ் கன்சர்வேஷன் டோட்டலியே வெளி ஆட்கள் சொல்ற மாதிரி தான் கன்சர்வேஷன் நடக்குது இப்ப நம்ம ஜம்மான் நம்ம கிட்ட இல்ல சோ இந்த மாதிரி பரிஸ்திதியில நாகர்கோவிலையும் இந்த மாதிரி நடக்குதா அப்படி நடந்தா நம்ம முன்னாடி என்ன ஸ்டெப் எடுக்கலாம்
ಇದು ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಳಕ್ಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ತರದ ಒಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಎದುರಾಗಲೇ ಒಂದು ಅಂತಲೂ ಸಮುದಾಯನೇ ಆ ತರ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಗೆ ತಳ್ಳಿರಂಥದ್ದು ಕಾಜಿರಂಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಮೊದಲಿಂದನೂ ಸಹಿತ ತಳ್ಳಿರಂಥದ್ದು ಮೊದಲಿಂದನೂ ಸಮುದಾಯ ವಿರೋಧಿಸಿದಿಗೆ ಅದನ್ನೇ ತೊಂದರೆ ಮಾಡಿಯದಿಗೆ ತೊಂದರೆ ಮಾಡೋವರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ನಿಲ್ತಾದಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಭಾಗಲ್ಲೂ ಅದು ನಡೆದದಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ನಡೆದಿಲ್ಲ ನಂಗೆ ಕಾಣಿ ಆದರೆ ನಂಗ ಹತ್ರ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಬಲವಾದ ನಂಗ ಅಸ್ತ್ರವಾಗಿರಂಥದ್ದು ನಂಗ ದ್ಯಾವರ್ಗ ನಂಗ ಹಿರಿಕರಗ ಇನ್ನೂ ಸಹಿತ ನಂಗ ಜೊತೆಲಿ ಬದುಕ್ತಾವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ನಂಬಿಕೆಗ ನಂಗ ಏನೇ ಒಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಎದುರಾತಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಂಗ ದೂರು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಲೇ ಇರೋದು ಯಾವುದೋ ಈಗಿನ ಏನ ನಾಗರಿಕ ಸಮಾಜ ಅಂತ ಆಳಿಕೋತಾರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ನಂಗ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ಹೋಗೋದ್ಲೆ ಮೊದಲು ನಂಗ ಹೋಗೋದುವೆ ನಂಗ ಪೂರ್ವಿಕರ ಹತ್ರ ಆ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕ ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಗನೆ ಒದಗಿಸಂತದಕ್ಕೆ ಅನೇಕ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗ ನಂಗ ತಕ್ಕದಿಗೆ ಆನೆ ನಂಗ ಒಂದು ವೇಳೆ ಆಳಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ನಂತರ ನಂಗ ದ್ಯಾವರ್ಗಾಗ ಆಳಿದ ನಂತರಲು ನಂಗ ಹಿರಿಕರ್ಗ ಆಳಿದ ನಂತರಲು ಆನೆಯಿಂದ ಸತ್ತಿರಂಥದ್ದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೇರೆ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳಿಂದ ಇದಾಗಿರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಇದೊಂದು ವಿಧಾಲು ನಂಗ ಅವರನ್ನೇ ಎದುರಿಸಿಡಲೆ ಕಾರಣ ಈಗನೂ ಸಹಿತ ಅರಣ್ಯ ಇಲಾಖೆ ಎದುರ್ತಾ ಇರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಅಂಜುತ್ತಾ ಇರೋಂಥದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಅವರ ಒಳಗೆ ಆ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಅದಿಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಇನ್ನೂ ಸಹಿತ ಗೊತ್ತದಿಗೆ ನಂಗನೆ ಮುಟ್ಟಿದರೆ ಏನೆಯೋ ಒಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಭಯನೂ ಇನ್ನೂ ಅದಿಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಕಾರಣ ಆದರೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಜನರಿಗೂ ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಗಲಾಟೆ ಘರ್ಷಣೆ ನಡೀತದೆ ಬಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಆ ಸಂದರ್ಭಲು ಅದೇ ಸಂದರ್ಭಲು ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗಳದಂದ್ರೆ ಕರಡಿಕಲ್ ಹತ್ರ ಕೊಲೆ ಆಡಿ ನೈಟ್ ಏನ ಗುಡಿಸಲ್ ನೆಲ ಕಿತ್ತು ಸಲಿತಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಒಂದು 25-30 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಇದ್ದಂತ ಹಾಡಿ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಸುದ್ದಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದಂಗೆ ರಾತ್ರೋರಾತ್ರಿ ಬಂದು ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಸೇರಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಇಲಾಖೆಗೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅರಣ್ಯ ಇಲಾಖೆಗೂ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ಗೂ ಭಯದ ವಾತಾವರಣ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಆಯ್ತು ಈ ತರದ ಒಂದು ಒಗ್ಗಟ್ಟಿನ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನ ಮತ್ತೆ ಒಂದು ವೇಳೆ ಆ ತರ ವೀದುಕೊಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಂಗನೆ ಮಿಲಿಟರಿ ಸಂದರ್ಭಲು ನಂಗ ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ಎತ್ತಿದೆಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಧ್ವನಿ ಈ ತರದ ಒಂದು STPF ETF ಈ ತರದೆಲ್ಲ ನಂಗ ಒಳಗೆ ತಂದು ನಂಗನೆ ತಡೆ ಹಿಡಿಯೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಂಗ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ಬಿಡಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ವೇಳೆ ಬಂದತಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಂಗನು ಸಹಿತ ಬಿಲ್ಲಿಡ್ತು ನಿಂಗ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನಿಲ್ಲಬೇಕಾದಂಥದ್ದು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅನ್ನ ಎಚ್ಚರಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಸಹಿತ ಜೊತೆಲೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಈ ತರ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ನಂಗ ಭಾಗಲು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನಂಗ ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮಿಕವಾಗಿ ನಂಗ ವಿಚಾರ ನಂಗ ದೇವರ ದಿಂಡ್ರು ನಂಗ ಅಜ್ಜಯ್ಯ ಅದಿರೆ ಅನ್ನೋರಿಗೆ ಆ ಮೂಲನೇ ನಂಗ ಯಾವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಸಹಿತ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೊಡಲಾಗ ಅವ್ರ ನಂಗ ಜೊತೆ ನಂಗ ಬರೀ ನಂಗದು ಹೋರಾಟ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದು ನಂಗ ಪೂರ್ವಿಕರ ನಂಗ ಜೊತೆಲಿ ಸೇರಿ ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋಂಥ ಹೋರಾಟ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಳಬಹುದು
So, Anupam, what Shivu was explaining is this that we understand that the situations in Kaziranga, in Kenya, the kind of militarization that conservation model is propagating, and because of which there is a lot of human rights violation, because of which people are being killed and people are just vanishing from villages. In all of this context, we have been able to understand what's happening in Kaziranga when we met Pranab long years ago, and also that it's definite that communities have also been raising their voices in Kaziranga, and I'm sure he says in Kenya as well. But at the same time, what Shivu is saying is one of the things that has helped us in Nagarole is that on any crisis that we face, we don't immediately reach out to the civilized people. We reach out to our traditional elders. The whole sacred cosmological governance that has continued in Nagarole for long years. They're talking to their spirits, they're speaking to elephants, they're speaking to tiger spirits. This tradition, and even the forest department knows of it, and there are instances where elephants have charged forest department people, elephants have charged these tourists, elephants have, obviously it's also of other reasons because elephants are stressed when tourists are around. There are many reasons, but there is a strong belief and traditional understanding, intelligence that the communities also have held over the years. And along with that, he says that unity amongst the people of the last 120 years, that the communities have faced this oppression because of conservation, in the name of conservation, particularly now with respect to national park and now with respect to tiger reserve, where the access to forests, access to sacred spaces, access to their own clan boundaries are being restricted. People at every moment sort of assert their rights, assert their rights over the land and their practices. And for example, he talks about his own village in May when 40 years after when they reclaimed their ancestral lands. One of the days there was this elephant task force and tiger task force and STPF, basically tiger task force people all arrived in the village. They were trying to dismantle the village forcefully. So as just the news went around, people around about 20 kilometers around the area, all of them arrived over the night in a gap of just a span of 1 hour. Around 300 to 400 people gathered at the space, and they challenged the guards who were carrying guns. If you destroy, if you touch this house, we will have to lift our bows and arrows, including our axes. So that unity, and we understand that the expansion of militarization is started to happen in Nagarole as well. But we have been resisting is saying that if you push us to the position, if you push us to the corner of the wall by raising guns at us, and there is no other way, we will have to pick our own tools. We will have to pick our weapons to hit you back.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is really telling, how the slow march of the forest conservation that we can see from here. I have Mr. Jackson, who's raised his hand. Before Jackson poses the question, let me just say that in the chat, we have shared the newsletter link for People Ecology Network, which is Solidarity. We have also shared some of the fact finding that has been done in Nagarhole related to human rights violation, and then a couple of films also that was made in Kaziranga related to unchecked growth of hotels and five-star hotels in Kaziranga, as well as how people's access to their resources have been cut off. So if you go to the chat, you can see these links and you can follow. We have also shared our email for People Ecology Network. You can write into us and get updates also. So I think I'll come to the last question. This is by Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson, could you unmute yourself and then pose the question? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mine is not more of a question, but a testimony. I am from a community, a pastoralist community, which is under conflict with the Western conservationist ranchers in Laikipia. Mr. Modekai came to our village late last year. We were having a conversation about how these guys are want to fence off our land, our ancestral land, in the name of conservation. Currently, they have an initiative called the Rhino Corridor, which they want to fence off the land, and at the expense of the community. The community there do pastoralism. That's their livelihood. That's where literally everything's their livelihood is critically dependent on that land. And it's very unfortunate that these guys want to fence off the land and at the expense of the livelihood in the community. The community is dependent on that land for everything, medical expenses, food, school fees, and everything. And they want to strip off the land in the name of conservation, which is very unfortunate. And I want to commend my Mordecai that you are doing a great job, and you are doing a great job in terms of social justice to those communities. Since for the illiterate guys, you are doing a good job, and I want to take this platform to thank you and
18 number to
continue
10
doing
number
the
অলপ
great
হেৰিটো
job.
ভুল হৈছে হা
And the struggle we can't give up easily on that land, and
11:45 লৈকে আছে
we are going to struggle until
তাৰপিছত
justice is found.
11:50
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jackson. I think we are
11:50 পৰা
really happy
12:12
to have you here. And
12:12
I think with
clip
this,
নাই
his comment, and
clipটো ইমান লম্বা
we, I think this was a huge learning for all of us, and also to see, how Kenya, how this distinct
11:40
geographies, Kenya and Kaziranga, then Nagarhole, this, how they are kind of united from in this struggle. Pranab wants to add, I think, a
18
comment here. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it so resonates with the
11
struggle
তোমাৰ
that our brother Lomniak shared. I mean,
হেৰিত আছো
resonates with the
11:50
kind of attack that's happening on communities actually
যোনটো
dependent and
11:07 11:45 আছে ন
sustaining this bioreach area.
এতিয়ালৈকে হৈ গ'ল
Uh, so I
এই
mean,
লাষ্টটো
before
11:50
ending,
12:12
I
লিভিং
mean,
কণ্ডিশ্যন
I'm just
এইটো অলপ
sneaking in with our say, since like all the people participating here, Timanna, everyone
18
seeing
হয়
like what how serious
the clip is still
struggle for
11:40
social justice and right to their land that they have
so
been
basically
carrying on
তোমাৰ
in their
যোনটো তুমি যোনটো
grounds.
দিছা লাষ্টৰটো
So
11:07
it's
11:45
also a call to everyone
নাই
to like
45 নাই
stand
চাগে
in
এতিয়া
solidarity
তোমাৰ
and
18
support
নম্বৰটো তুমি চাগে
the
বেলেগ
struggle
18
there.
নাপালো এনছা নেকি বেলেগ
And
এটা হৈ যায়
similarly in Kaziranga, I mean, we have a standing struggle against the Hyatt hotels, which has taken up traditional community land,
19 নাই আৰু
and they have
19
cordoned
নম্বৰটোৱে
off
নাই
it
ক্লিপ নম্বৰে নাই 19
with a standing police force
there
there
is
for more
directly
than
20
2 years now. There have been grave consequences that communities have had to face. People like us who have been, I mean, leading the struggle.
এই এডিট
And
অলপ
this ever expansionist project of Kaziranga
অঁ
or forest areas, right? Like now recently, like another
কালি
one lakh 50,000 bighas of land, which is around 50,000 hectares of land, which is
সন্ধিয়া
prime grazing land of communities and fishing land and communities living there.
নম্বৰে ময়ো এডিট
So yeah, these are struggles that are standing, and we would just like to bring in, since we couldn't say it out loud during our conversation. It's just a call for people to stand with us.
ঠিক আছে হ'ব
Thank you, Anupam. Yeah, thanks for taking this.
ৰিকিবৰ অঁ কি চুট কৰি আছে
I can see that Mr. Kashyap has raised. This is to Mr.
নাই নাই নাই
Dr. Ogada, actually. Uh,
দে
what forms of systems could be viable alternatives with the aim of community-centered system and low tourism impact needs? Low tourism impact or needs. Should I repeat that? I think you're
I
on
can
mute.
see it in the
আৰম্ভ
chat
পূজাটো
there.
নহয়
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Living condition.
I think it's important to look at the livelihoods, what the communities are doing. If I can give an example, like what Mr. Sorgol just said, they're pastoralists and they raise livestock. So they've already got the skill set. They have got the knowledge, and they can continue that. So we can just help them by maybe helping them with some veterinary assistance to take care of the livestock health. We can help them with getting their livestock to market, and so that they can continue doing better at what they already
It's like a
know.
30-second clip.
I think the biggest problem we do in conservation, and I say we because I've also been a professional conservation for many years, is that we always want to introduce new skill sets, new things, and we are always talking about creating awareness of this. We want to train some people to be a chef or a tourist guide or something to serve the tourists, instead of looking at the livelihood that is already there. Because livelihoods exist where people have lived for thousands of years. They have some skills, they have some livelihoods. So let's help strengthen or develop that. And we should also remember that there's also a very important option. We should always consider the option of leaving them alone.
18.
Conservationists never think of that option, like I can just go away and leave them alone because they are okay. So we should consider leaving them alone or adding value to what they already have. But we should not introduce new skill sets, new extractive methods, and new imperatives that are not there. Because what they've been doing for thousands of years, that means it's sustainable. So let's try and improve it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think with that note, we can conclude this very interesting webinar. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ogada, Thimmanna, Shivu Bhai, Rajan, Pranab Dole, and also Saurav and Ruela, who have been at the back end, helping us organize and get this going. Please do write into please do write in. I think we have come to the really end of this conversation. I can see that there are people still raising their hands, but I think we are short of time at this, and we would like to continue this conversation again, with all of you on board. And this was a great learning experience for me also. We hope to continue this conversation in the future. This is just the beginning. And with that note, I think I wish you Happy New Year. And I just want to end this thing. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you all.
Thanks, Ogada. See you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Of course.
Rajan bhai. Cool. Area. Saurav. তুমি কি একো চেম্বাৰত আছা নেকি?
নাই, এটা ৰেকৰ্ড কৰি আছিলো কাৰণ ৰেকৰ্ড হোৱা নাছিলে।